A millionaire took his little girl to a cafe and was froze when a young lady used sign language. The gray rain of Portland poured down like long strings, lashing relentlessly against the tall glass windows of the high-floor loft Ethan Miles called home. He stood still before the window, a cooling cup of coffee in his hand, his gaze not truly fixed on anything outside. From here, the Willamette River harbor was nothing but a blurred shadow in the mist, yet Ethan's mind was trapped somewhere else, at the fateful afternoon that had taken away the woman he loved most. In the corner of the room, his 8-year-old daughter Maya curled up in a cream-colored armchair. She clutched her tablet, fingers sliding across the screen without truly watching anything. 6 months had passed since that train accident, and Maya had not spoken a single word. 6 endless months in which Ethan had tried every therapy, from child psychologists to play-based treatments. But all ended in helplessness and silence. That day, Hannah, his wife, had planned to come home early from a short work trip, but the train derailed while crossing an old bridge, and just minutes later, Ethan got the call. He still remembered the screech of metal in the TV news footage, the blaring alarms, and the moment Maya sat frozen, neither crying nor asking questions, only silent. Since then, their spacious loft had become suffocatingly quiet. Every photo on the wall was like a door to the past. Hannah laughing brightly beside Maya in the park, the three of them decorating their Christmas tree, weekend picnics at Cannon Beach. Now there was only the sound of rain and the low hum of the heater in the living room. Ethan, a renowned architect specializing in sustainable buildings, was used to solving complex problems with blueprints and formulas. But with Maya, all his knowledge and skills were useless. He had tried flexible work schedules, special tutors, even considered moving to start over. Nothing broke through the wall of silence his daughter had built. This morning was no different from the hundreds before it. Rain, cold coffee, silent Maya. But there was something in her eyes that made Ethan pause. A fleeting, faraway look, a faint flicker, as if she was listening to something deep inside herself. He set the cup down. "Do you want to go out with me for a bit?" he asked softly, knowing the answer might be silence. Maya didn't reply, but her fingers froze on the screen. Ethan took it as a signal, small but worth holding on to. He stepped closer, kneeling to meet her gaze. "You don't have to say anything. We'll just take a walk." She glanced at him briefly before looking down again, but that brief look was enough for Ethan to decide. Minutes later, the two of them were in raincoats, stepping onto the damp street. Ethan didn't know where they were going, but he knew one thing. He couldn't just sit in this house waiting for a miracle. And he didn't know that this small decision would open the door to a place where silence could be understood and healed. The morning rain had eased into a light drizzle as the father and daughter turned onto a narrow street near the harbor. Ethan had no specific plan. He simply wanted to get Maya out of the stifling air of their loft. They walked slowly, their footsteps echoing on the wet bricks, rainwater dripping from eaves onto the sidewalk. A sea-blue sign reading "Harbor Lights Café" caught Ethan's eye. Below it, a few pots of yellow chrysanthemums bloomed brightly against the gray weather. Through the glass door, he could see warm golden light and shelves of colorful pastries. For some reason, he felt drawn inside. He opened the door. A small bell chimed, announcing new customers. The scent of waffles, baked butter, and roasted coffee wrapped around them like a warm embrace. The cafe was small but tastefully arranged. White brick walls, round wooden tables, each topped with a glass jar holding a few dried lavender sprigs. At the counter, a young woman was arranging trays of freshly baked cookies. She turned when she heard the door close. Her smile spread like sunlight against the gloomy sky. "Welcome to Harbor Lights," she said, and moved her hands in a way that was unusual, yet fluid. Ethan realized it was sign language. "Hello," Ethan replied, slightly awkward. I'm Ethan, and this is my daughter, Maya." The woman bent down, her gentle gaze meeting Maya's. "Hello, Maya," she said while signing. "Your raincoat is adorable." Maya hid halfway behind her father, saying nothing. Ethan offered an apologetic smile. "She's a bit shy." "That's okay," the woman replied, her voice soft as a whisper. "I'm Clara Johnson. Here, people can take their time, and silence is perfectly fine." The way she said, "Silence is perfectly fine," caught Ethan's attention. It wasn't a casual remark, it was permission, understanding. He and Maya chose a table by the window facing the street. From there, Maya could watch the passers-by, and Ethan could watch Clara. Minutes later, Clara brought over 2 menus along with a small notebook and a box of colored pencils. She placed them in front of Maya. "You can draw while you wait," she said, signing the sentence as well. Maya looked up briefly, her eyes lingering on Clara's hands. Ethan ordered a coffee for himself and hot chocolate for Maya. Clara nodded and walked back to the counter. Ethan noticed whenever a customer called from afar, she didn't react until they waved, a sign she was hearing impaired. A moment later, Clara returned with their drinks and a giant chocolate chip cookie. "This one's for Maya," she said, placing it in front of the girl. "I made it this morning. The secret is brown butter and a touch of sea salt." Clara suddenly said, "You're wondering if I'm deaf, aren't you?" Then she smiled. "Yes, I lost my hearing at the age of 5 because of meningitis." Ethan hesitated. "Sorry, I didn't mean to—" "Don't apologize," Clara chuckled. "It's part of who I am. I'm pretty good at lip reading, and I live just fine." She placed the giant cookie in front of Maya, then unexpectedly began speaking while her hands formed gentle fluid movements. Ethan realized it was sign language. Maya's eyes widened. Clara continued signing. "The secret ingredient is love." The little girl tilted her head, watching intently, then slowly lifted her hands to mimic a gesture. Clumsy as it was still her first attempt at communication since her mother had passed away. Clara smiled. "Do you want to learn?" Maya nodded. She taught the girl the signs for hello and thank you. When Maya got them right, Clara clapped her hands and praised, "That's wonderful!" Ethan felt his eyes sting. It had been half a year since he'd seen his daughter smile, even if only for a brief moment. When leaving the cafe, Maya kept glancing back several times, clutching the paper bag with the untouched cookie inside. In the car, Ethan asked, "Did you have fun, Princess?" Maya looked straight at him and signed, "Thank you," the exact sign Clara had just taught her. Not words, but still communication. And to Ethan, it was hope. The next morning, Ethan woke to find Maya sitting at the kitchen table, practicing the signs for hello and thank you in front of the mirror. "Good morning, sweetheart," he said, pouring coffee. "Ready to see Clara?" The girl looked up, nodded, and then signed, "Please." Ethan's heart felt as if it might burst with happiness. On the way to the cafe, he even whistled along with the music, something he hadn't done in 6 months. When the familiar yellow awning came into view, Maya bounced slightly in her seat with excitement. Clara waved from behind the counter, signing and speaking at the same time. "Good morning." Maya immediately signed back, her smile beaming. "You've been practicing, haven't you?" Clara asked. The girl nodded, then eagerly showed off the new signs she had learned. They sat at the table by the window. Today, Maya didn't hide behind her father's legs, but sat upright, watching Clara attentively. "Today we'll learn about family," Clara said. She taught the signs for mother, father, family, and love. When signing love, Clara pointed to herself, crossed her arms over her chest, then pointed to Maya. The girl repeated it, then suddenly looked at Ethan and signed the full sentence. "I love you, Dad." Ethan's throat tightened. "I love you too, Princess." Clara guided him on how to sign it back, and when he did, Maya clapped her hands in delight. For an hour, Clara taught more signs about emotions, foods, and daily activities. Maya was like a sponge, learning so quickly that it amazed Ethan. Then came the moment he had hoped for most. "Daddy!" Maya's voice was soft, raspy, and slow, the first real sound to break the silence of 6 long months. Ethan felt as if the entire cafe had vanished, leaving only that trembling voice. His chest tightened and tears blurred his vision. Clara's hand flew to her mouth, her eyes wide with disbelief. "I want to learn more." Clara's smile lit up her face. "We'll learn as much as you want." Maya replied, "Yes, please," signing at the same time. Ethan couldn't hide his emotion. "Thank you. You have no idea what this means." Since her mother passed, Clara said gently, "I'm so sorry for your loss. Grief can feel like being trapped in a world no one understands. But she's finding her way out now." Before leaving the cafe, Maya tugged her father's hand, pointed at Clara, and signed a question. Clara explained, "She's asking if she can come back to keep learning." Ethan looked at his daughter's hopeful face and nodded. "Tomorrow." Maya hugged Clara's legs the way she once hugged her mother's. As they headed to the car, Ethan noticed her steps were lighter. Buckling her seatbelt, he asked, "Are you happy?" This time Maya smiled and signed "Thank you" once more. Since that day, Harbor Lights Cafe became a regular destination for Ethan and Maya. At first, Ethan thought it was simply a way for his daughter to interact with the outside world in a gentle, safe environment. But soon, he realized these visits were more like special therapy sessions, where the therapist was Clara herself. Every afternoon after school, Maya would settle into the familiar table by the window, hands wrapped around her cup of hot chocolate, while Ethan sipped his coffee. Clara often brought a small notebook with a few sheets of colored paper, a box of pencils, or sometimes a little whiteboard and marker. "This is hello," Clara said, smiling as she signed. Her hand waved slightly, the motion neat and clear. Maya watched intently, then imitated the gesture. At first it was awkward, but within a few tries she had it just right. Ethan watched quietly, both amazed and deeply moved. He hadn't seen his daughter this focused and engaged since before the accident. In the cafe's warm golden light, Maya's face seemed softer, her eyes less distant. In the days that followed, Clara taught Maya other simple words. "Thank you," "please," "cookie," "happy." She was patient, never pushing, and whenever Maya got it right, Clara would flash a bright smile or clap her hands softly in praise. Ethan began joining in the lessons. He sat beside them, clumsily copying each gesture. Sometimes Maya would giggle when her father's hands made the wrong shape, and that laughter was like music Ethan thought he'd never hear again. One afternoon, while Ethan was struggling with the sign for family, Clara leaned in to adjust his fingers. In that moment, Ethan realized her hands were both strong and gentle, carrying a strange sense of safety. He caught Clara's gaze, and in that brief instant, something unnamed stirred quietly in his chest. Maya, for her part, grew more and more proactive. She began speaking in signs to Clara before Ethan could interpret. Sometimes Maya even tried to teach her father what she had learned, playing the role of a tiny teacher. Clara would often watch the two of them and smile, a warm smile touched with something like hope. For Ethan, every time they left the cafe, he noticed Maya walking lighter, her eyes brighter. It seemed there was an invisible thread between her and Clara, woven from patience, understanding, and a language beyond words. And he knew they would keep coming back, not just for cookies or coffee, but for something far more precious. A door slowly opening in the silent world of Maya. One Thursday afternoon, the cafe was quieter than usual. Rain streaked down the windows in blurred lines, reflecting the warm golden lights inside. Maya sat absorbed in drawing on the notebook Clara had given her, completely lost in her own world of colors. Ethan and Clara sat at the table next to her, each with a cup of coffee. Ethan rarely had the chance to talk with her alone, as most of his attention was usually on Maya. But today, Clara had chosen to sit down. "Have you ever learned sign language before?" she asked, her eyes bright and her voice soft, as if not wanting to disturb the calm. "No," Ethan shook his head. "But for Maya, I'll learn no matter how long it takes. It's because of you she's opening up again." Clara smiled faintly, though there was something deeper behind it. "I know what it's like to live in a silent world. I lost my hearing when I was 5 due to meningitis. Everything changed after that. Old friends drifted away, and school no longer felt like a place I belonged." Ethan listened, realizing there was no bitterness in her tone, only an accepted truth. "So how did you find a new direction?" "My family learned sign language so they could talk to me," Clara smiled. "That saved me from feeling abandoned. But as I grew older, I realized not everyone is willing to adapt in order to understand you. I wanted to create a place where everyone feels welcome, no matter how they communicate. Harbor Lights is that dream." Ethan looked around the cafe, the local art on the walls, the menu board illustrated with signs, the young staff serving while signing to customers. All of it reflected the ideal Clara had described. After a pause, Clara's voice dropped. "I was in a relationship once, 2 years. He said he loved me, but he left in the end because I couldn't have children." Ethan caught the flash of pain in her eyes, even though her smile remained. "He said he wanted a normal family," Clara continued. "I don't blame him, but it left a scar." Ethan slowly placed his hand on the table, not touching hers, but close enough for his words to feel solid. "That man didn't deserve you. A family isn't only made of blood. There are many ways to become a family. You're proving that to Maya and to me every single day." Clara looked at him for a long moment. In her eyes was gratitude and perhaps something else. Warmth, openness, the readiness to trust again. At the next table, Maya lifted her head and held up her drawing. 3 simple figures, a man, a woman, and a little girl, all holding hands under a roof. "Family," Maya signed slowly, her gaze on both of them. In that moment, Ethan knew it wasn't only Maya who was healing. It was him, too. Clara paused, her voice dropping low. "I love you." Tears streamed down her face. "I tried not to, thinking it was too complicated, too soon. But I can't help it." Ethan gave a small smile through his own tears. "I love you too. I love your strength, your kindness, the way you make everything around you better. I love the way you love my daughter as if she were your own." They leaned in, sharing a gentle yet profound kiss, like a promise for the future. They began spending more time together, not just at the cafe, but also outside of Maya's lesson hours. In the evenings, Ethan and Clara texted each other about new recipes, interesting sign language vocabulary, or simply to ask if the other had eaten dinner yet. Maya was the first to bring up meeting the family. One evening, while Ethan was doing the dishes, she stood leaning against the kitchen doorway, her eyes shining. "Dad," Maya signed slowly, mixing in a few softly spoken words. "I want Clara to meet Grandma." Ethan paused, surprised. "Really? What do you think Grandma would say if she met her?" Maya nodded firmly, her light brown curls bouncing. "She'll like her. I know it." Just a few days later, Ethan arranged to invite Clara for dinner at his mother's house. The wooden home in the suburbs of Portland was warm with the scent of baked goods and the crackle of logs in the fireplace. His mother, Margaret, greeted Clara with a gentle yet welcoming hug. "Welcome, Clara. Maya has told me so much about you." Clara looked a little shy at first, but quickly smiled, signing her greeting and speaking clearly. "Thank you for having me." Maya dashed into the kitchen to fetch her sign language notebook, standing between them to interpret simple sentences, proud as a professional translator. That dinner went more smoothly than Ethan had expected. Margaret told Clara stories about Ethan as a child, throwing in playful glances toward her son. Clara shared about her own family, her parents and 2 younger brothers, all fluent in sign language and living in Astoria. Over dessert, Margaret leaned forward, looking directly at Clara. "You've made my granddaughter smile again. For a mother, that's enough reason to care for you." Clara lowered her head slightly, and Ethan noticed a grateful, emotional gleam in her eyes. The following week, it was Ethan's turn to meet Clara's family. Astoria welcomed them with the scent of sea salt and the sound of waves crashing against rocky shores. Her parents' home was close to the beach, with a balcony that faced the open ocean. Her father, David, shook Ethan's hand firmly. Her mother, Linda, hugged Maya as though they'd known each other for years. Clara's younger brothers, Theo and Ben, took turns teasing Maya in sign language, making her giggle. All afternoon, Ethan watched how seamlessly Clara fit into her family, full of laughter, with sign language flowing like a graceful dance. He felt a warmth spreading through him, as if a new circle was opening, and he and Maya were being welcomed inside. On the drive home, Maya sat in the back seat, hugging the teddy bear Linda had given her. She spoke softly but loud enough for Ethan to hear. "Dad, I think this is our family now." Ethan smiled, one hand on the steering wheel, the other squeezing his daughter's small hand. In his heart, those words were already an acceptance that needed no ceremony. The idea started on a quiet afternoon at Harbor Lights. Ethan was helping Clara rearrange a few tables near the window when Maya ran over, holding her sign language notebook. Inside, she had drawn a big room with people sitting in a circle and a whiteboard at the front. "I want this to be a class," Maya signed, "so people can learn signs like me." Clara looked at Ethan, her eyes lighting up. "I've dreamed about this," she said, "an open space where everyone, hearing or not, can learn and talk together." From that day, the 3 of them got to work. Ethan, with his architect's expertise, sketched out a redesign to turn the back area into a community room. Clara contacted friends and sign language teachers, while Maya took charge of testing the cookies to make sure they were good enough. They worked for weeks. The back wall was painted a soft sea blue, decorated with the sign language alphabet and artwork made by deaf students. The space had folding tables, movable chairs, a whiteboard, and a small book corner with learning materials. On opening day, Harbor Lights was busier than ever. A notice on the glass door read, "Free sign language classes. Everyone welcome." Locals poured in, curious students, elderly residents eager to try something new, even employees from nearby shops. Ethan stood at the coffee counter, watching Clara at the center of a circle of learners, her hands moving fluidly, her eyes alight. Maya sat beside her, learning and laughing, occasionally turning to sign to her dad. "Am I doing good?" The class ended with applause, both silent, sign clapping, and loud. An older woman approached Clara. "I never thought I could learn something new at my age, but now I can say thank you and sign to the cashier at my local store." Clara smiled, returning the sign for thank you. Ethan felt his throat tighten. He knew this wasn't just a class, it was a bridge. And Clara was the one who had built it, not just for the community, but for him and Maya as well. The opening day of Harbor Lights' new community space came on a clear Saturday morning. There was no rain. Sunlight streamed through the street trees, casting a warm blessing on the cafe's facade. Inside, the tables and chairs had been neatly arranged to make room for the first sign language class in the new space. Guests filled the cafe, sipping coffee and chatting. On the walls, Photographs of deaf community members hung alongside the sign language alphabet. Ethan walked in, a small wooden box tucked into his coat pocket. His heart was pounding, but the moment Maya ran up and hugged him, smiling. "Dad, everything's ready." In rapid signs, his nerves eased. The class began, Clara standing in the center of the circle, her hands moving fluidly. A volunteer interpreter stood beside her for the newcomers. The atmosphere was full of excitement and connection. When the lesson ended, Ethan stepped into the circle. He borrowed the volunteer's microphone, but before speaking, he set it down, walked over to Clara, and began to sign. "Clara, you've changed the lives of both me and my daughter." The room went still, every eye on them. "You've given Maya a language to connect with, and given me a reason to believe in the future." Clara blinked quickly, as if holding back her emotions. Ethan took the wooden box from his pocket, opened it to reveal a delicate platinum ring. "I want us to be a family, not just in our hearts, but on paper, and in every moment of this life." He knelt down. "Clara Johnson, will you marry me?" No translation was needed. Clara understood. Tears welled in her eyes as she nodded firmly. The room erupted in applause, both spoken and in sign. Maya ran to throw her arms around them, signing over and over, "I'm so happy. I get to be the flower girl, right?" Clara laughed through her tears. "Of course, sweetheart." Ethan slipped the ring onto Clara's hand, and in that moment, amid the scent of coffee, the sound of laughter, and the glow of warm light, they knew a new chapter had officially begun. 1 year after the proposal, Portland welcomed spring with gentle breezes and the soft pink of cherry blossoms. That day, the Botanical Garden Conservatory glowed in the sunlight, like a glass gown reflecting thousands of shimmering petals. Inside, chairs were arranged in 2 neat rows, a white aisle carpet strewn with flower petals in between. Guests chatted quietly, some using words, others in sign language. Even the officiant was bilingual. Every sentence was accompanied by graceful hand movements. Maya, in a white dress with a small flower crown in her hair, darted around with her basket of petals, making sure the runway for the wedding was perfect. When Ethan walked over, adjusting his tie, she looked up and signed, "Dad, you look handsome." Ethan laughed, patting her head. "And you're the prettiest flower girl in the world." Music began, a soft piano melody. Clara appeared at the end of the aisle, arm in arm with her father, her pure white lace gown hugging her graceful frame. Sunlight streamed through the glass, wrapping around her like a tender embrace. Ethan felt everything else fade as Clara came closer. When they stood facing each other, the officiant began the ceremony, bilingually so everyone could understand each word. "Ethan and Clara," the officiant said, signing as he spoke, "today you are not only joining your hearts, but you are joining a family." After exchanging rings and vows, the officiant smiled. "But before we conclude, there is something special." He motioned for Maya to step forward. In the officiant's hands was a set of papers, the adoption documents. Ethan signed first, then Clara. When the pen left the paper, the officiant announced, "As of today, Maya is officially Clara's daughter, both in law and in heart." Maya threw her arms around Clara, pressing her face into her dress as if afraid to ever let go. Clara bent down, holding the little girl with a fierceness that spoke louder than words, her own tears falling into Maya's hair. Ethan wrapped his arms around them both, sealing the moment into his heart forever. Applause erupted, both in sound and in the visual flutter of raised hands, signing. As guests began to leave their seats, Clara whispered to Ethan, her eyes shining, "Now, our family is complete." Ethan squeezed her hand, knowing this wasn't just a wedding, it was the beginning of a new life for all 3 of them. 2 years had passed since the wedding, and while Portland had changed with the turning of seasons, for Ethan, Clara, and Maya, Life felt like a steady, gentle current, growing deeper with time. Harbor Lights was still lively every morning, the scent of coffee and baked goods blending with conversations, some spoken, some signed. But now the community room at the back had truly become the heart of the neighborhood. Every week the sign language classes were full. It wasn't just children or seniors attending. Shop employees from down the street, mail carriers, and even a few local police officers dropped by to learn. Maya, now 10, wore her hair to her shoulders, her eyes as bright as the first day she met Clara, but with a new spark of confidence. She moved easily between English and sign language, often helping new students. People called her Clara's little assistant, and she wore the title with unmistakable pride. Ethan was still busy with his architecture projects, but he had learned to set work aside when it mattered most. Every Friday afternoon, he was at the cafe with Clara and Maya, preparing for Sign Language Story Hour, an event the entire community looked forward to. Ethan told the stories, Clara signed each sentence, and Maya acted them out with such expression that no one could take their eyes off her. Laughter mixed with the flutter of signing hands filled the room with an energy Ethan wished he could bottle. Sometimes Ethan stepped back to watch Clara and Maya working together. He saw Maya standing beside Clara, her small hands mirroring each sign with precision. Saw Clara leaning down to gently adjust her daughter's fingers. Saw them both burst into smiles. In those moments, Ethan knew that every loss and heartache in his past had led him here, to a home built not just of wood and brick, but of love and understanding. One summer evening, after story hour ended and the cafe was closed, the three of them sat at the table by the window. Outside, the quiet street glowed under warm yellow lights. Clara rested her head on Ethan's shoulder, while Maya curled up in his lap, clutching the worn teddy bear she'd had long before meeting Clara. "You know," Clara whispered, "I used to think my life would always have spaces that couldn't be filled. But now—" Ethan squeezed her hand gently, smiling. "Those spaces have become places where love can grow." Maya stirred, her eyelids heavy, and slowly signed, "I love you, Mom and Dad." Ethan and Clara looked at each other, signing back together. "We love you too." Outside, the night breeze rustled the trees as if whispering blessings. Inside Harbor Lights, the warm light wrapped around three people, a small family, but complete, steadfast, and certain they had found the most precious thing of all. A shared language, not just in hands, not just in words, but in their hearts. A language that would carry them through every season of life, together.